Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Here. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I don't have to be confined to a single room my entire life. The synopsis is as follows. Multiple generations of couples and families inhabit the same home over the course of a century. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. So much about this movie is unique and interesting, in that there's not so much a plot as it is just watching what happens from a single spot in time over the course of a century. What that means for this movie is that you're basically a camera in the corner of a house, and you get to see everything and everyone that comes through there over the course of that century. But the main story focuses on the family of Richard and Margaret, and their relationship with their family as you see multiple generations within the house. And when it was focused on them and their family, that was when the story was the most impactful. But there were some more random storylines that were included that added no value to the film and just seemed to be added in order for the movie to be relevant, or added to just add more fluff to the film because there's not a ton there. Don't get me wrong, I love the concept of this film and it definitely had me feeling things very deeply for about an hour afterwards, but it's not a movie for everyone because it lacks plot and you're just watching these people live life. So for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Here is rated PG-13. There's a moderate bit of profanity, including the use of the Lord's name in vain, quite a bit, and 1 F-bomb. There's some sensuality and sensual dialogue, and several implied deaths throughout the film. As far as content goes, this movie was pretty tame, so for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs up. 3 is acting and script. Obviously, Tom Hanks is a fantastic actor, and I thought that he had the best performance in the film. But a lot of the acting felt off. And here's my theory behind that. Because you're confined to one camera and one spot the entire movie, it makes this film feel like a stage performance. Now, I love theater and I love going to watch plays, so I kind of just locked my brain into that and I was able to see it as that. But there were so many times where it felt like stage acting instead of movie acting. And when that happens, it kind of feels a little cheesy. And because of that, some of the lines just fell flat that should have meant so much more. I mean, you see a lot of familiar faces in here, like Robin Wright, Kelly Reilly, Paul Bettany, Michelle Dockery. So there's so many familiar faces, but the acting in a handful of those moments just did not do it for me. Despite that though, I do think that the script was pretty decent. A lot of the conflict and dialogue between people that you see going on is very realistic, and it's part of the reason why at the end of the movie you kind of enter this what is my life, am I making it worth it kind of space. And it creates so many moments that you can relate to at different points in your life, which I thought was really cool. So for me, acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. On the downside, because you're hopping between a bunch of different storylines over the course of a century, it feels like you don't get to know many of the characters, especially the ones that seem to be included just to be relevant or add some fluff to the film. But when you're focused on Richard's family, that's when you see the most character development. The conflicts that Richard and Margaret go through over the course of their marriage cause a lot of character development between both of their characters, and the arcs that you get to see so many of the different characters go on are really realistic and they hit home. But overall, I do like the emotional tone that this movie had with its characters. So for me, character development gets a 50-50. 5 is visuals and CGI. There are some pretty clear moments of cheesy CGI in this movie, and it doesn't try to hide them. So it does challenge your willing suspense of disbelief for a bit of the film. In addition to that, like I mentioned before, this movie is shot with a single camera. You are in the corner of a room watching what happens in that room, in that house for the entire movie. But for most people, if you're watching this film, it would make you feel claustrophobic because you're not moving the entire film. So stylistically, it's definitely not going to be a film for everyone. I loved the concept of the movie and the importance of staying in that house for the entire film and watching what goes on in there. It just created something special for the film, and I think that was the point. So bad CGI, interesting concept, but kind of claustrophobic. So for me, visuals and CGI get a 50-50. And 6 is rewatchability. Here clocks in at an hour and 44 minutes long, and simply because you're stuck in one place for the entire movie, it feels like a very long film. I love experimental films like this. I know there's always a risk of something like that happening, but I did stay engaged for most of the film, and I think it's because you're watching life fly by for the characters involved. I honestly couldn't give a rip about any of the other characters besides Richard and Margaret's family. And so that was this film's strong point. And when it focused on that, you almost can't not watch, because there's something so interesting to the human brain about watching someone live their life to its entirety and come to the end of it and say, do I feel like it was worth it? And when you come to the end of yourself and you ask those questions, it can take you in some very deep places. That's why I was feeling emotional after the movie for a while, is because even though it wasn't great overall, it definitely made you feel that way. And so there's something special about that. That being said, this film was more of an experience than it was something that I would watch again. Maybe once in a while to remind myself that life flies by, so I need to make it matter. So for me, rewatchability gets a 50-50. With all these areas considered, I have to give Here a 6 out of 10. This movie had some bad CGI. You were stuck in one place for the entire film, so it felt a little claustrophobic. There were some unnecessary characters involved just to add fluff to the film. And quite a few of the acting moments felt cheesy and like you're watching a stage performance rather than a movie. But I really enjoyed the concept of this film and watching this family live their life out in this house from beginning to end. And the way it made me feel after the movie was very deep and introspective. And I just like when a movie makes you feel something. That being said, this movie is definitely not meant for everyone. So with all that in mind, you be the judge, but Here is a movie that I definitely think you could watch, but I don't know if you need to go see it in theaters. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Here, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.